company has faced two issues this week that have hindered its performance: a fire at a main substation causing the outages, and a cyber attack that has limited the ability of customers to get in contact with Luma.
Take it wherever, with whoever. This is the no-holds-barred multi-purpose vehicle with the capacity to take life on, and the audacity to say, "What else you got?" Introducing
Hello and welcome to the Nomiki Show. It is Thursday, June 17th, and oh my God, Mercury is in retrograde. What is going on? Thank you all for being so patient with us over the last week. I don't care if you don't believe in Mercury in retrograde, because this week just proved it might actually exist. Just Google it. Anyways, if you didn't know, I'm sitting here in Puerto Rico, and there has been a lot of power issues here. Man-made, I will say that, over the last week and a half, since the power grid here has been privatized. Today, though, we are not, right this very moment, I should say, with these issues. We are not dealing with a power issue. We have power where I am, but I did want to start the show off before our streaming issues to talk about what is happening in Puerto Rico and why it is so important and is a lesson for the rest of the country. So I want to play this clip really quick that is an overview of the situation in which Luma, the new company that owns the Puerto Rican power grid, what has happened. And then I'm going to do a follow-up. Let's play that clip.
Stand by, please. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Boone County, West Virginia. Population 21,457. It was once a hub for strip coal mines, but as the world shifted toward natural gas, those strip mines became abandoned
Brad, that's not the
valleys where not a whole lot.
You got to go back. You had played the clip and went through. Hey guys, sorry, we were doing this while we were setting up the streaming and we had some issues. Just go back to Slack. It's in the Slack. It's in the Slack. All right, guys, we'll just skip that. Sorry about it all. We're having some technical issues today. So essentially, I'm going to review what Paulette, her Twitter handle is Devilette, Devilette. She did a great stream. I assume I don't know, I shouldn't say that. They did a great stream on Puerto Rico and what happened. So in the last day, 227,000, almost 300,000 people went without power. That's what happened here, why we couldn't air the show yesterday. But Paulette says the U.S. government imposed austerity measures on Puerto Rico so drastic that neurosurgery residence programs serving the public have shut down. On top of it, hospitals are experiencing the loss of expensive equipment due to the forced privatization of the power grid, causing instability. Quote from the president of the Hospital Association in Puerto Rico about the damage the instability of the electricity is causing to multiple medical institutions around the island. That quote it's in Spanish, but I'll read it to you in English. It's essentially saying that we have had more than 18 hospitals without electricity service, without knowing when it will return. We have the plans to return, but the problem is that every time the power goes out, a piece of equipment is damaged. That is the president of the Hospital Association. This is a constant issue. Before the U.S. government forced Puerto Rico's electricity grid to be privatized, which was effective on June 1st, the American-Canadian corporation Luma, which is the company, was paid $1 billion to prepare for service and maintenance duty. 2 weeks in, the grid's instability is costing people their homes, food, appliances, everything. And as many of you know, Puerto Rico experienced a deadly hurricane in 2017 that knocked out the power grid, leaving much of the island without power for a year. And as a result, the utility became a target. PREPA, the public utility, became a target for neoliberal vultures and disaster capitalism to swoop in and take over. You know about Whitefish. Puerto Rico is under full authority of Congress and surviving under direct austerity measures imposed by the Fiscal Control Management Board. Despite resistance, they have overruled the legislature of Puerto Rico, and a contract to privatize the grid was implemented, and it is now under Luma's control. So do you understand that? The Puerto Rican legislature voted against this. People showed up in the streets, and the Fiscal Control Board, the junta, who are tied, not elected, most are not from the island, and are tied to hedge funders and Trump, they decided to overrule and privatize the entire electric grid. So since then, since June 1st, there have been widespread power outages, lack of access to website and customer service, delayed or no response during infrastructure emergencies, voltage instability causing serious damage. Not to mention, there were explosions of different facilities in different areas, and 2 homes in San Sebastian just 3 days ago went up in flames after voltage instability provoked the transformer in their street to short circuit. So it's dangerous. It has life. I mean, if there's anybody who knows, it is the island of Puerto Rico, what happens when you don't have power. And instead of funding the public utility and upgrading things, they decided to completely hand it over to a private agency based in a private company based in Canada that had to ship in people from the mainland who don't speak Spanish, who don't know the land, and bring in different services and vehicles that are not from this land. And the result is catastrophic. Now, we know that this island cannot be hooked up to the national power grid like Texas can, but this is, and I will keep talking about this because it is so important and it is such a critical lesson in what neoliberals and the far right and right wing, obviously, capitalists, corporations are trying to do around this country. They're trying to starve resources of public utilities and agencies and privatize them, just like charter schools with public schools, and blame the failures on the public utilities. This has got to stop. All right, guys, we have a really good show today. Thank you for all of your patience. Ben Burgis is here. Let's just bring Ben in right now, real quick, if he's in the waiting room. Let's bring him in and we can start off our conversation so we can just keep the show moving pretty quickly, since we don't got a lot of time right now. Is Ben in the waiting room? We got him, Brad? All right. All right, Ben, you are on mute. Thank you for all of your patience. I feel like I don't even need to introduce you because here we go. This is just how we roll in 2020. You know, I thought this was all going to go away like when the pandemic ended. Instead, just kidding. Just kidding. You think you're comfortable. You may not be wearing a mask, but you're still doing Zoom issues. Ben Burgis is, of course, the host of Give Them an Argument. It's a podcast and YouTube show. He's a philosophy instructor and a Jacobin columnist, and he has a piece out right now titled Not All Labor Actions Aid the Working Class. That's in Jacobin. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So I would love to talk about the state of labor, and there's a labor revival in this country. Great news. There's a lot of opportunities for labor to, current unions to be revitalized internally as well. Not all labor is the same. Mm-hmm. So what inspired you to write this piece? We can kind of get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, so I think basically 2 things. One is some of what was going on with the Morales campaign.
Diane Morales in New York, running for mayor.
Exactly, yeah. And then the other is something that came up in connection with this, which is something that Ryan Grimm reported during his stint, guest hosted at Rising, which is that something very similar happened during the Bernie Sanders campaign in like January 2020. And in that case, in the case of Diane Morales, we probably don't need to go that deep into the sort of rabbit hole of weird, mediocre, like New York City politics, but
oh, come on, that's my favorite.
Okay. Oh, we can if you want. But,
this is the Nomiki show. Come on now.
Yeah, so I think that Diane Morales probably, on closer investigation, wasn't that much to write home about anyway, so it might be no great loss that her campaign was blown up in this way. But I think that what is interesting looking at people's reactions to this, so the Diane Morales campaign was basically blown up by a labor dispute with campaign staffers that led to a work stoppage, and in this case, maybe again, no great loss. Morales, was talking a very good progressive game, this year. If you look at some of her past statements about charter schools, about the Cuomo versus Cynthia Nixon race, maybe, you can take some of what she was saying this year with a grain of salt. But I think that the larger issue to me is, all right, let's say for the sake of argument that she had been as good as she, presumably people who went to work for her, people who volunteered for her, thought that she was, that this was like really a promising vehicle for advancing all these reforms the city desperately needs, then would it have been worth it? Would it have made sense, that calculation, to blow that up, for the sake of the immediate interests of campaign staffers? And especially, I think this issue comes up a lot more because you could say, okay, well, whatever, if, but it wasn't. So who cares,
right.
But like, I think the issue comes up much more starkly with what Ryan reported about the Bernie campaign in Iowa, that because of disputes about hours, about, people getting days off, that in January in Iowa, weeks before the caucus,
yeah,
the stakes could not possibly be higher as far as electoral politics goes. There was almost a campaign workers strike, some sort of work stoppage. People were talking about stopping entering in data from door knocking because of this, and there is a real dilemma here, and I don't want to short shrift it, because I think that it's certainly not that campaign workers don't often have legitimate complaints. They absolutely do.
Sure.
But also, I think if you just look at these things and your entire view about it is, well, okay, we support, unions, we support labor militancy, which obviously is the case. I mean, if you're a democratic socialist, that's like right at the heart of your politics. But I think there is a real dilemma here, and there are real trade-offs that I worry that sometimes some people on the left aren't taking seriously enough. Because if you're looking at the sectional interests of a few dozen workers, who probably a campaign like that, that can't afford to hire that many people, you're probably not going to get days off in Iowa in the weeks before the caucuses. And if you're weighing that against everything that's at stake for the entire working class throughout American society, in like whether Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden ultimately ended up becoming president, I think that you just have to acknowledge that there's at the very least a trade-off there, and I think that I think that I don't think that would have been worth it, and I think that I think situations like this are going to keep on coming up. And that's why I wrote the article.
It's interesting you say this, because I've always looked at being in the left in these insurgent campaigns, and my campaign included, as being like revolutions. Right. And I just don't see. I mean, they are political revolutions. They're not obviously physical revolutions, but this is how we. Many of us believe that through some version of electoral politics, and obviously movement politics as well, we are able to overtake the establishment. And it's not always great. And there's a lot of cultural stuff that we need to shift, without a doubt. As a woman, I could tell you, I've, been working on campaigns since I was 16 years old. And some of these stories that I could share with you make Dianne Morales' campaign look like it is literally like vacationing at a spa. Right. And this is leftist politics, by the way. Right. Like, we're talking about putting people on chairs and saying, what did this person do wrong today as a young woman? Just a few years ago. And they're not great cultures. They're pressure cookers, because you don't have as many resources. Oftentimes you don't have as much experienced talent as some of the other campaigns do. And also culturally, it's not as transactional as it is probably with other campaigns that are more establishment oriented. And you're running against people who control all the levers of power for the most part, all the resources, and are constantly throwing bombs at you. And so it's just, it's a little bit more difficult. What I will say about Dianne Morales' campaign that I think is a little bit unique, and I can speak to personally, and she finally did make a statement about this. I think it should have been her first statement, maybe, which is why I'm a little I question kind of where some of this stuff was born from. Maybe not everybody was supportive of the union. is that she was a recipient of matching funds. And in the city of New York, if you receive matching funds, you have every person who's, works for you or every person who's contracted through your campaign, you have to have timesheets attached for the most part. I'm giving it a very basic analysis. And that is where you have to show that you have provided the work for the pay. So it is almost virtually impossible. It only puts the candidate and the treasurer and the campaign manager, by the way, in a situation of legal risk to have a strike or to have a work short. It actually puts them in a dangerous situation. Yeah. But simultaneously, does the campaign manager's actual duty, legal duty, authority to oversee that budget and oversee the work relations. And the campaign manager in that campaign was like, see ya. So, it's just, I find some of this stuff is we on the left have to, because they're coming at us from every single way, we don't even know where some of this stuff comes from. Because they're coming at us from every single direction, I just believe that we have to be much sharper when it comes to understanding how campaigns work and how, like you said, like, is it at the end of the day, 30,000 foot perspective, is this servicing the greater revolution or is this servicing, also, it takes a while to unionize. You don't unionize like a minute before the election, the actual election.
Yeah, right. And I should say that like none of this is to say that campaign workers, shouldn't be unionized. That they're
right.
100%. Because campaign workers have bills to pay. The campaign workers sometimes, like you're saying, have abusive bosses. There are all sorts of reasons, why that's a extremely legitimate thing. And not for nothing, in the Sanders case, the fact that they were already unionized is part of how they managed to dodge that bullet, which would have completely ended. I think we could be almost certain of this. Like if there had been like a campaign strike in Iowa in January, that would have ended it, months before it actually ended. But part of the way they were able to dodge that bullet is the fact that they were already unionized. There was some kind of democratic structure to deliberate about what to do. And ultimately, saner voices prevailed there. But I think that the trade-off, and this is the thing, the distinction I was trying to make in the article, kind of wrestling with this, is that it's not the same thing as working to enrich, just a regular boss,
right, exactly.
It's just a different.
There's no CEO, there's no owner, and especially in a matching fund situation, it's like literally you are the boss. Like it's the candidate most likely is not making money off of their campaign for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. So in that situation, if it matters, if it's, if this is a campaign that could actually be a vehicle for achieving something that matters on that larger level, then yes, sure, campaign workers, should be organized to have that protection, but I don't think you can treat it as if this were just a regular capitalist workplace. I think you have to make distinctions, and I think just the trade-offs, like tactically, are just going to be different, right? So I think that, I think that the best concrete suggestion that Ryan had made in his original reporting at Rising, and this is not original to him, there are efforts, to like this that are underway, is that what would make way more sense for campaign staffers would be that you have some sort of ongoing organization analogous to like the Screen Actors Guild. It's not like every individual movie, you organize that movie, and if it's contentious, then like, you end up having to shut it down, in the middle of production. It's an ongoing thing, so it doesn't have to be redone in every individual movie set, because campaigns by definition, like if you had the morale, like whatever, if all the workers' demands were met, the Morales campaign would still probably be over in a few weeks, and at best later this year, and so I think that model of organization would make more sense, because you have different it's not like somebody saying, oh, you have to work hard because this quarter is so important or something. And, and ultimately it's just the interests of your boss.
Right.
It's the interests of the greater working class and society as a whole. It's the interests of of rebuilding the labor movement, getting those like much more pro-worker labor laws that, that you get certainly with, with somebody like Sanders as president, and, and by winning a bunch of elections, is the only way that you can do that. So, I mean, the answer is not like, oh, campaign workers shouldn't be unionized. But I also think that sometimes the left looks at things like this and we just have this kind of knee-jerk thing and say,
yes.
well, okay. And
it's interesting because some of the demands, I mean, I don't think people read the demand. It was like abandon traditional campaign strategies and do, I'm trying to remember what one of them was, like more mutual aid. And it's like, it's a New York City election. Like there are strategies that work, and like people have been doing this for a long time, and you can be movement and political at the same time. You can use data to win and strategically target and have you got to get your message out. And it was just a really weird kind of set of some of the demands, not all of them, were very strange. But then simultaneously campaigns, and this is I think what's interesting about that point, and Ryan's point is, they grow very fast. It's very hard to fully vet everybody. And this is really important, I think, for people to realize. It's really hard to vet every single person on a campaign. So, that can be also weaponized, where someone's put on a campaign and I personally experienced this, and they're, working with the other side. Like, and by the way, very common on campaigns. This is not conspiratorial. This is something that happens almost in every serious campaign that's a threat in some way or form. So it's a dirty industry. And I think like we on the left have to go in really kind of understanding this is a dirty industry. There are a lot of people who are new to this process. It's hard to vet. You campaigns move exponentially almost if they become viable. And in this situation, if there was like a union that existed, it's almost also a vetting tool too, because people are part of it and they know each other, and they, it's
you would like your if you had the campaign workers guild, then and you had your whatever CWG card because you'd done this before, I mean that's some credibility for who you are, the fact that you have done this before, the fact that you've gone through some sort of process. So this would be good for for everybody. I mean, like it except that you'd have to pay people more and all that, but I mean, like I think overall it would be very good for everybody, and especially because I think that even people who maybe see part of the point about this, like going on strike in Iowa in January would have been a really bad idea, like still starts out, well, whatever, you have they didn't end up doing it, so what are you talking about? But like, if people remember the Iowa caucus last year, it was this razor thin margin. Like it's more people caucused for Sanders, but there was this because Mayor Pete had slightly more state delegate equivalents, which is a ridiculous thing to focus on, but there was some it was close enough for there to be some ambiguity, and that I think matters, in terms of larger momentum. And it's hard not to wonder, well, okay, if everybody was spending a little bit less time fighting with each other about this.
Interesting.
Like how many extra people would they have had to be able to like bring out and convince to caucus to have it be an unambiguous victory without that, state delegate equivalent thing, letting the media say that Mayor Pete had won.
It's almost like you're preaching solidarity, Ben, and that's just a little crazy for me right now. I don't know if I can handle. Oh man, Ben, I would love to talk about this much more, but as you know, we've had some streaming issues today, so the show must go on. Ben Burgis, come back soon. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Thanks, Nomiki.
Take care. Okay, in the meantime, before we go to our amazing panel, I want to talk to you about Sunset Lake CBD because it is my jam. It is, I'm going to tell a story that, you know what, I don't care. I am living my best Aquarius life, and in my late 30s. My friend, I know you guys some of you are making fun of the astrology thing, but my friend told me the other day, she said that your rising sign is more of a reflection of who you are in the first part of your life. My rising sign is Virgo. Virgo is very organized and structured, and like the cruise ship director, I guess is the best way of saying it. And my sun sign is Aquarius, which is like oh my God, I'm in the clouds. I love doing this. I'm open-minded, blah, blah, blah. So they're kind of in conflict. But what I was told is that the rising is something that is more of a reflection of you in your earlier stages of life, and you become more of your sun sign as you get older. So with that being said, I promise this is leading to a point. I am like all out Aquarius now. I'm like talking about CBD and edibles. So the other day, over the weekend, I guess it was a while ago, I wanted to go to sleep at night, and a friend of mine acquired, because it's medically legal here, acquired an edible. And I don't do edibles. This is important to note. I'm not really like the best person with that situation. I was having issues sleeping, and I didn't have my Sunset Lake CBD. Important point. Took the edible, and I was a disaster. Like, just the next day, I was a walking zombie. I could barely get work done. I was like, I couldn't feel my legs at one point. I was like, never again am I ever doing this. 24 hours. And all it did was just remind me, because I was like, oh, it's got to be just like Sunset Lake CBD, just like a little buzzier. That's all. No. I don't know who you people are that like this. I am not a fan, but I am a fan of Sunset Lake CBD because I take the tincture every night, and I'm out of it right now. As you know, Sunset Lake CBD is a farmer-owned company that ships craft CBD products directly from their farm to your door. Sunset Lake CBD has all types of products for aches and pains and your sleep and your stress. They've got gummies, they've got salves, they've got coffee, they've got tinctures, which is what I use to go to sleep at night. They flipped a Ben & Jerry's farm in Vermont to grow premium hemp. They diversified it. And their minimum wage is $15 an hour. Their employees own the majority of the company, and they support independent media like our show and the David Pakman Show. And of course, the Majority Report. You can also try their new dog biscuits. You can personally try them. Your dog could try them. I don't know if cats are into that. I don't know if other animals are into it. You could eat them with your dog because they're human edible products as well, as Sam Cedar said. It's only just a few products, oat flour, pumpkin, and peanut butter, but go check it out. For now, you can get 20% off of your order at sunsetlakecbd.com. All you have to do is type in Nomi, N-O-M-I, sunsetlakecbd.com, type Nomi, N-O-M-I. I'm telling you, I'm a CBD girl. I am not an edible girl. Case closed. You know who I am. I'm living my best Aquarius life, but I have a body, and I don't know who you people are that can handle it. How do you function in the world? These people are like, I've been eating enough. How do you function? Man. All right. I'm not going to do a break because we are on a crazy show schedule, but we have Rep Rabb in the room here. We have Arun Chaudhary in the room. Rep Rabb unfortunately had to go because he's just repping it up in Pennsylvania. But we have Arun Chaudhary. Can we bring Arun in? He is the host of the committee program. Of course, a regular on Thursdays, but committee program airs on Monday here, 3 p.m. Eastern on all the spots, the Twitch, the YouTubes, and of course, over at fans.fm. He's a political filmmaker, the first official White House videographer, and served as the creative director for Senator Bernie Sanders when he ran for president in 2016. Are you in the bathroom? Ron, YouTube told us we have to have better backgrounds. I just want you to know that. I'm going to say that on air now. You have to have more professional. They were like,
I'm in Stockholm in a hotel room.
In a bathroom?
No, it's actually interesting. They have it's like in the proper room, and then the actual bathroom has its own sink. And okay. I find it useful. So there's a sink and shower in an enclosed different bathroom, and then there's this, which has like mugs to drink out of, and yeah.
The secret about my life in hotels, which is a frequent thing, as you know, is I just find a little wall. I'm telling everybody. And then I put the lights behind me. Yeah, that's it.
I do this. You have no idea what's coming up in the committee program next week, where I'm actually
ain't gonna like it.
Where you can see me putting my socks on the stove in Padua, because that's what you do when you're traveling, because you wash your clothes so that when you return, you have all clean clothes when you come back. That's the secret, my friends. Wash your clothes when you're on the road.
Do you only have like 5 things to wear? A woman would just be like, I have more clothes when I go back. Or anybody would. I don't know. I'm not saying one person. I mean, you're European now. Europeans have like 3 outfits. I remember when I lived in Paris in 2003, I was shocked by how little clothing everyone I knew had. because I was coming from the consumer republic of the globe, the United States. I was like, what do you mean you only have like 8 outfits? But now that I live in New York, I totally understand that. Hi, Arun. What's up? Let's talk about some stuff that's happening. Thanks for your patience. It's like 3 o'clock.
I'm almost wishing I'd flip this around because there's this weird sculpture of a monkey holding the lamp the other way. There's like all the angles just so crazy here.
Oh my God. All right.
How are you?
Okay.
Can we do the Biden clip? Can we do the Biden clip?
Hang on one second.
The foreign policy one?
Let's start off with Joe Manchin just for a second, if that's okay. And then we'll go to Biden because I want to break this up.
Too many Joes.
I know, but he's got stuff up. It takes a while to load the stuff. So let's start with the Joe Manchin. Baby Joe is what I call him. Baby Joe Manchin has a lot of feelings about voting reform. Whoop, whoop. Hang on, Brad. Hang on. I got to lead it off. All right. No, you guys keep it on screen. We're figuring things out over here. We got some streaming issues. So Baby Joe Manchin has some issues with voting reform, real issues with voting reform. And he thinks that, he just thinks that voting rights are not about him. That's him, the one holding up voting reform. So I don't know what he means by that, but let's play the clip.
And I've been working across the aisle with all the Republicans trying to get people to understand that that's the bedrock of our democracy. An accessible, fair, and basically secured voting. That's it. And right now in a divided country, this is not about me. It's about our country. People better start looking at how do we get to where we got to January 6th, and why don't we want to fix it? And I've been working across the aisle with all the Republicans trying to get people to understand that.
So
that's the
there we go. Arun, listen, he's trying to get Republicans to work with him, and that's why he is holding it up.
Yeah, no, he's not. He's a small little egotistical man. And the idea that it's like not about him is insane, except that like he is often like ducking kind of responsibility on things. I can tell you a personal account was actually after his, and obviously this took a little bit of spunk to get behind, but after his gun bill went down, Manchin to me in the Senate, I was there to record a statement about it for a gun, a gun sensible, gun rights group. And he couldn't think of what to say and went to the bathroom and never came back out.
What?
And then someone from his staff was like, oh yeah, he's busy now, you gotta go. Like couldn't even look at us and be like, I can't think of anything. So no, exactly. And I just, and the way he's very self-consciously posing in all these pictures now, like, all over Washington, he knows he's the number one guy. If he wanted to do something about it, he would. So no, buddy.
No, nobody at all. And, it's listen, if Joe, Big Joe, meaning our president, and if Big Chuck wanted to do something, they would do something. We talk about this all the time. And they're just like, complaining, like they have no power. Like, oh my God, they're just like waiting. They're like counting down the days that they lose the Senate. Big Chuck is like, it was so much more fun when I was not in control of the Senate. And Big Joe's like, it was so much more fun when I didn't have to pretend to be progressive and actually pass some progressive stuff. Now I have to just like, no, it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. But here's the other thing. It's in Joe Manchin's best interests to actually keep the Democratic majority because that's what makes him relevant.
Yeah.
You see this little dynamic? It's a fun dance.
He finds himself in exactly the place he needs to be.
Yep. All right, let's move on to Big Joe and his positioning on foreign policy because I don't know.
Actually, can I just say before we go in, I think Big Joe, 2010 Big Joe would have been yelling at little Joe. I actually think that Joe Biden was a tough enough character back in the day to like sort of be like, you need to fall in line, buddy. Give him some 1950s sort of like, playground speech. And I'm not sure he has that in him anymore. I think this could also be part of the problem,
and some of it is also
carrot,
just because,
no stick.
And some of it is also just because he's, I think this moment is so loud for him, not just the crisis of the moment and the what he's inherited, but also just, like the movement was not what it was in 2000. He's never seen the movement this alive before. And we speak a different language, literally. Like the pace of everything is just different than I think most of these bureaucrats are used to dealing with and responding to. And it's just like they're used to going to committee to discuss, like, well, how do we deal with this? How do we, and it just takes a bit. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like everybody's getting pressure from all ends at this point. And they're just not equipped. They're frozen. They're stuck. They're confused. Yeah. You know the gem. We can talk about it some other day. But in the meantime, Joe Biden, the president, just wants you all to know, stunning. Can you believe that countries interfere in elections? And like, we as Americans, we are beyond that. This is morally reprehensible. So let's play this clip.
His credibility worldwide shrinks. Let's get this straight. How would it be if the United States were viewed by the rest of the world as interfering with the elections directly of other countries, and everybody knew it? What would it be like if we engaged in activities that he is engaged in? It diminishes the standing of a country that is desperately trying to make sure it maintains its standing as a major world power. And so it's not just what I do, it's what the actions that other countries take, in this case Russia, that are contrary to international norms. It's the price they pay. They are not able to dictate what happens in the world. There are other nations of significant consequence, i.e. the United States of America being one of them.
Where do we go with that? Arun, as man of the world, did like I'm so curious how this played internationally. Actually, before we even say internationally, how does it play in a place like Germany?
People are not picking it apart except on the left because they so desperately want Joe Biden to be the Joe Biden they want him to be, and they so desperately want America to be the America it can be. I say some of the fights I get in are so sort of anti-patriotic here. I feel like, a heel because I'm just like, America's not what you think it is, kind of .com. And like, but I feel like there's like a bigger problem here, which is again, the sort of this version there's things that Joe Biden believes as just an old guy. Who doesn't necessarily believe them, but knows this is what you say, whether it's legalizing marijuana or coming to admit that maybe we should coup a little less in the US. Like, he does not have those things in him. Yeah. And I think sort of some of us thought that maybe you're so freed, you're old, like you can be this thing for the kids, you can meet the moment. And I think there's some of that happening, and that's why we're getting more than nothing. But there are just going to be these things. And America just wants to be the fifth grade history version of itself. You saw this in that Hill clip with Ryan Grimm. Like, people believe this stuff. They believe it.
Yeah, the Hill clip, which we don't have handy, so we'll play that another day. But it's not just that it's a fifth grade version of itself. I actually think the reason why something like an infrastructure bill is more doable for someone like Joe Biden, even though it's a lot less than it should be or what it was presented as, is because an infrastructure bill was not controversial 20 years ago. It just wasn't. Yeah. So it's actually something he's just like, yeah, of course we could have an infrastructure bill. But like,
it played in the 50s just fine, Yeah,
it played in the 50s fine. It played in the 80s even fine. It played in the effing 90s decently well to a certain point. It's not like he was an architect of neoliberalism. He was like a side act of neoliberalism. And that's really, I think, important. It was like the winds were going in a certain direction. He just like went with the winds. But, he's still of an era where there was an alternative to neoliberalism as he was coming up. So it's not like totally foreign to spend money on government programs domestically. He's not, some sort of Obamacrat that wants to wreck public schooling, for instance. I truly believe that Joe Biden does believe that we should have, funded public schools, and that, even though he's part of an administration that was for charter schools, I don't think that's something that he or his wife, a teacher, Dr. Biden.
No, especially Dr. Biden, yeah.
Especially Dr. Biden, that flows with, their norms. There is a different type of neoliberal Democrat out there. And there's like versions. There's like the technocratic neoliberal Democrat. There are the opportunistic architects like Bill Clinton. And then there are the Joe Bidens who are just like, whatever gets me elected, dude. I don't know.
But it is something old fashioned in it, But no, to answer your question, it's not bleeding through into European indignation. I think it will be unfortunate if it should happen in the same week as an engineered coup in Peru. So I think after Biden said that, there were probably some phone calls in Lima and embassy basements being like, you got to wait 10 days now. Joe kind of stepped in it.
Explain. You have to.
We just had a very close election in which Pedro Castillo, a Marxist farmer, almost all quasi-revolutionary, defeated Keiko Fujimori, who is the actual daughter of a fascist dictator, famous for battling the Shining Path, but a man of a strong man, classic capitalist strong man. In Peru, and she is already starting to claim fraud, 100,000 votes. We don't know exactly what's happening. You can start to feel like OAS, the Organization of American States, start to be like, well, we should maybe look into this in a very Bolivia-like way. So this is something where I think the world is saying, will the U.S. tolerate this, or will they go, or will they do what Joe Biden says he can't even imagine the U.S. does, which is directly interfere in the politics of other nations? I mean, it's offensive.
Well, what's interesting though too is it's going to be harder and harder for Joe Biden to do these types of coups the way that Trump could, whether it's having Kamala Harris on stage with an actual fascist leader in Guatemala and like echoing Donald Trump's state. I mean, what that blew up real fast. Nobody commended that, and their argument was like, don't go after Kamala Harris. She's a woman of color. What? No, she literally echoed Donald Trump's lines next to an actual fascist. And then simultaneously, whether it's Bolivia or Mexico to an extent, I think it's a little bit more complicated, the dynamics there, or Peru, or Chile now. I mean, it's going to be harder for them to side with the glaring fascists that are, do you see what I'm saying? Like they can't.
Yeah, but there's new tactics. There's softer ways,
Like what? What's some of the soft tactics?
I mean, it's not soft tactics, but the way that, American sanctions and embargoes work is actually like a brutally violent thing in which, ships that come thousands of miles to do things like if they stop in your port, they can't go anywhere else. This is like what Napoleon dreamed he could do when he tried to put the embargo on British shipping, but it wasn't possible back then. Right. And so places like Cuba and stuff, it's not just that, the US won't give them. It's like everyone else who wants to do business with you can't. And when one nation controls the sea lanes of the world, this actually means like privation for people. And so I do think you'll see even more economic screws put on people. And I mean, we're living in an age of vaccine diplomacy. And I think you've already heard even Democrats be like, we need to give vaccines to people we care about and not those who we fight with. And you'll start seeing, not just Iran, again, a false geopolitical enemy of the United States, but I think you'll start seeing some of our Latin American pink wave countries being put on those lists. And that's going to be horrible, a shame, just more atrocities in our hemisphere.
I want to shift gears if you have a second. I really can't hold back because we only have a couple days until the New York City election, and we will be talking about it for a while because we have not counted the votes yet. Or meaning the votes, it's ranked choice vote. Just for those who didn't know, New York City on Tuesday will be the final day for voting. You can do early voting now. If you haven't done that already, go check it out. New Yorkers, go find out what your local location is, blah, blah, blah.
Don't rank gang.
And with that being said, your early voting location is likely different than your normal voting location. Just want to reiterate that because there's been some false information, even texted out by campaigns. So it's ranked choice. It is the first election that is matching funds, citywide election that is not a special election. So for every dollar raised, $8 comes into a bank account if they opt in. Why is this important? We have a really complicated system in which the left, despite the fact that there's matching funds, did not consolidate behind a strong candidate. I mean, Maya Wiley, I think people are supporting her on the left, but including AOC, but she's not somebody who comes out of the movement left, and she was obviously in the de Blasio administration as well. So complicated, hard, right? But there was a debate last night, the last debate, and Eric Adams is leading the polls right now. None of this also matters because it's ranked choice too. So you could it could end up, we don't know. I think everyone's trying to figure it out, but even the most sophisticated strategists are struggling with, the dynamics. So Andrew Yang,
these supercomputer things. They're doing all of it.
Andrew Yang could still be very he is still in the running. I mean, it's at the last poll was Eric Adams, Catherine Garcia, which is just an anomaly to me, and then Andrew Yang. So let's play this clip of Andrew Yang talking about mentally ill people.
Yes, mentally ill people have rights, but you know who else have rights? We do. The people and families of the city. We have the right to walk the street and not fear for our safety because a mentally ill person is going to lash out at us. Yes.
Arun, my question is, why is it that we had to literally try to cancel Marianne Williamson, but this guy got an effing pass? How does this industry work? Tell us. You've been doing this for a while.
He's gotten a lot of passes. This wasn't a mistake. People like to jump on you when you make a mistake. This was, a deliberate tactical move. Maybe it was an impulse item at the end of the register before he started speaking, but it was a thing where it's like, wait a minute, nobody ever lost a vote, kind of being weird, like Law and Order-y weirdness, even if that's going to be super bigoted against people who have a real problem. Like, that's okay. And it's not a mistake. He's thinking, again, in these ranked choice voting, if somebody's voting for Adams, maybe this is how I get to be number 2. We work harder because we're number 2. Yang's working a little harder because he's number 4. And I think the poison is somebody told him that he could be mayor, right? This is what happens to all these folks, right? Before they do something horrible, someone's like, hey, listen, if you want to do the thing, you got to do this. There's no way Elizabeth Warren doesn't look back in regret at that debate night with Bernie, right? Like she looks at it with regret. And the reason that it happens because someone's like, you can be president if you do this. Like, this is the problem.
Interesting.
This is the problem.
Egos. I mean, but it's also, I think the issue with Andrew Yang is like, why? Why can't the press, why can't the New York Press Corps, be as serious with Andrew Yang as they were with many candidates, as they were with, Diane Morales, there were
because they did in the beginning, and it's too late without admitting that they were wrong.
They didn't. They didn't. They propped him up. They made it sound him.
No, that's what I'm saying. They did it in the beginning.
Oh, didn't.
So they can't now.
Yeah.
You can't change the tune. It was like, otherwise, like, what were they doing before? Not doing their research, not reporting, like all the things that we think. Yeah, but it's like
they were taking selfies with him.
They already did the thing, already decided, again, because of like access journalism, that it's a good idea to be friends with the campaign. Andrew Yang certainly managed to pull some people in his campaign who are very good at being friends with reporters. And this is the result. I mean, I hate, look, there are people who are very serious about investigative journalism. It's never been my calling. So I speak of it like as a third person. But in general, that's not really how it works anymore. It's not disbelieving power and proving something true. It's, can I hear something from you that no one else has heard so that I can print it? It's just access.
And simultaneously, like, they're even calling their bets on which candidates that they think they're going to have a relationship with in the future. And
it's an investment.
It's an investment. They could create it's like a utility where, okay, well, Andrew Yang has the name ID, even though nobody's taking him seriously, he has the name ID. So, maybe I'll stay close to him. Generator happening right now. Power.
It was a cheap investment, right? Like,
yeah,
a little bit. It sounds like something's happening. It's all right though. No, it's a cheap investment. Like early on, it's like, if I'm nice to this guy, when he wins, he doesn't even know that many reporters. Like, I'm going to be one of the people that he calls all the time. And that's great. And if not, everyone's going to forget about it sooner or later. And this conversation that we're having about like how terrible like Andrew Yang is and how bad reporters were, like, there's no cost for that. That's not going to continue. That's not like going to rumble through these people's careers. So they're even right. Like, this is a very, low cost and potentially high gain opportunity. That's the same choice they'll make again next election, over and over and over again.
Okay, there is a generator. You can hear it that they're starting.
Now it sounds like it's a struggling generator.
It's I don't know what's going on over there. I just know that we're in the land of little power right now. So on that note, Arun Chaudhary, go check out his show, the committee program, right here, all the places. What's your fans address?
It's fans.fm/committee and then patreon.com/committee pro. And we would love to see you on Monday when we are actually doing an In Case You Missed It episode with some of our favorite segments and also featuring me in a sauna in Malmo.
as long as it doesn't violate YouTube standards.
Absolutely not. I have the smoking jacket on.
Beautiful. All right. We will see you next week as well, Arun. And then little secret, we're going to be filming in an undisclosed location. It's super cool if we have strong Wi-Fi, and it'll be a lot of fun. So teaser, we'll be together. All right. Thanks, Arun. Thank you to everybody for sticking through the show today. Really appreciate you. Gypsy Mama says, we'll walk through fire for you, Nomiki. Well, we'll hang out in the chat for 30 minutes waiting. Thank you so much for hanging out in the chats. Everybody in the chats, thank you. I was in there for a second. Really appreciative to all of you for sticking around, being patient as we work through some stuff. It'll be, it's just life. It's what happens. We're cool. Aquarius energy, just bring it in. Let go of the Virgo, bring in the Aquarius. Damien Nash says, I had to go out after majority reports. So glad Nomiki waited for me to get home to start. Oh, thank you. It was just for you, Damien. That's all. Mike Wright said, CBD is how we get through tech issues. Hell yeah. I don't get edibles. I don't understand you people. Just saying that. Prairie Fire says, that's nice. I didn't realize that. Prairie Fire sent a super sticker. Thank you so much, Prairie Fire, for the love. And I think for now, that's it. If we missed you, we will definitely bring it back tomorrow. It's been a crazy show, as you all know. We love you. Tomorrow's Fun Friday. We will see you same time, same place. Stay in solidarity.
The Nomiki Show. The Nomiki Show. Yeah, Clash momentarily for class solidarity. Cash circulating, give the masses back its currency. Greed from elites, oligarchs stay fed. Deep state, fake fed, everybody break bread. Racism, homophobia, sexism, religion in this melting pot we live in. Time to build a new system, unionize labor rights. Highlight the issue, talking heads left is best. The saga continues. The Nomiki Show. The Nomiki Show. The Nomiki Show. The Nomiki Show.